And speaking of a perfect example of the reason why countries have borders and the kind of people that don't believe in them, on Tuesday, an Egyptian-born, naturalized citizen of the United States, one Adam Hamaway, a man who was a defense witness for the convicted terrorist dubbed the Blind Sheik, won the Democrat primary for New Jersey's 12th congressional district. Hamaway is a veteran combat surgeon with the Army who gained national attention when he scored endorsements from several big-name squad members, like the far-left Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the America-hating immigrant Ilhan Omar, and the terrorist-loving Rashida Tlaib. I will come back to that in a moment. The socialist Senator Bernie Sanders also backed Hamaway. Now, to his credit, during his time as a combat surgeon, Hamaway helped save the life of Senator Tammy Duckworth when her Black Hawk helicopter was struck down by a rocket-propelled grenade in 2004. However, what he is facing scrutiny for is his role in a trial for the World Trade Center bombing, where he defended the so-called Blind Sheik's act of terrorism against this country. And he is also being scrutinized for his past work with a now defunct organization that provided actual support to Al-Qaeda, the enemy of this country and killer of more than 3,000 of its people. So the terrorist connections here abound, which explains why the squad approves of him. After all, they never met a terrorist they didn't like. As for the details here, in 1995, Hamaway testified as a defense witness during the terrorism trial for the Muslim cleric Omar Abdel Rahman, aka the Blind Sheik. Hamaway admitted that he had accompanied Abdel Rahman to a conference in Detroit, but then he disputed some of the allegations about the cleric's known statements. The New York Post pointed out that notably, Hamaway testified that Abdel Rahman's remarks about, quote, conquering the land of the infidels were being taken out of context by the prosecutors. Silly you. Despite his efforts to spin the known crusading mindset of Islamist extremists, and that's not the same thing as Muslims, Abdel Rahman was nevertheless convicted of helping to plan terrorist attacks, and he was linked to the group that was responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. A spokesperson for Hamaway has now tried to distance the man who wants to sit in our Congress from his own terrorist-linked past by stating that at the time, Abdel Rahman, the man that he defended, was one of very few religious figures in what was then a very small Muslim community in New Jersey. As though that excuses defending terrorism in the form of bombing. It's okay to be in favor of that as long as your community is small? Yeah, let's see how that lands. Then he added that now Dr. Hamaway condemns that man's violent rhetoric and actions and all violence, hatred, and terrorism, and he will always. Dr. Hamaway has no contact with this person after they were arrested. He just tried to get him set free by testifying on his behalf. And he condemns him now, just not then. But the story doesn't end there. In 1994, Hamaway also worked with the Benevolence International Foundation, which was a nonprofit where he helped deliver medical supplies to hospitals during the Bosnian War. However, in 2002, Bosnian authorities raided that group's offices as part of a joint operation with the United States and wound up dismantling Benevolence International Foundation, which was identified as a front for the Islamic terrorist group Al-Qaeda, according to Jewish Insider. And they were not alone in that assessment. The 9/11 Commission also found that the base for this group was part of an impressive array of offices that covertly produced financial and other support for terrorist activities, a system that Osama bin Laden personally established in the early 1990s. In reaction to Hamaway winning the Democrat nomination for Congress, Representative Mike Lawler of New York posted, "How in the hell has a defense witness in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing with ties to Al-Qaeda been nominated by the Democrats to serve in Congress? If elected in November, Congress should fully investigate his ties to terrorist organizations and determine whether he is fit to serve." As a representative of New York, you can kind of understand his feelings on the matter. Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida felt the same way, writing, "This guy was a defense witness in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, allegedly with ties to Al-Qaeda. There is no way he can have security clearance. National security risk." Which is why Hamaway must be defeated by all common sense people on both sides of the aisle when he faces off against Republican Greg Mealy on November 3rd for the congressional seat in New Jersey, where Hamaway is heavily favored to win, as that district is a very entrenched Democrat seat. Which is why the current ban on any foreign-born citizens serving as president or vice president, a ban that has been around since our founding, needs to be extended to our congressional lawmaking body. We cannot have foreign terrorists governing us if America is to survive. That should not be controversial to anyone with any level of reasoning abilities at all. And speaking of Congress, as promised, let's circle back around to the squad. The House struck some comments that were made by Ohio's Republican Representative Max Miller after he blasted Michigan's Democrat Representative Rashida Tlaib on the House floor on Wednesday by calling her out for being someone who, quote, advocates for terrorists on a daily basis, end quote. Now, we all know that this accusation is entirely true, and yet these bluntly honest comments were still struck. So, let's take a look at Tlaib's decade-long record for ourselves, because it demonstrates that Representative Miller's comments come with the receipts to back up every single word that was edited out. But first, here's what happened. Representative Miller unloaded on Rashida Tlaib, a genuinely awful human being, during a debate between the two members of our Congress, in which he told her to her face, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, gentle lady from Michigan, and its members are butchers that you like to hang out with to a certain extent. When Rashida Tlaib erupted at him with her performative anger, Representative Miller didn't budge, firing off another round instead as he shot back, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are we getting a little emotional?" After the chairman tried to restore order, Rashida Tlaib erupted again with more empty outrage, at which point Representative Miller doubled down, responding, "I certainly believe you advocate for them, yes. You advocate for terrorists on a daily basis. You advocate for a terrorist regime every single day." That truth caused Rashida Tlaib to immediately demand that those words of truth be stricken from the record, calling Representative Miller's accusations, quote, "a direct attack on my character," as though she has any. According to Axios, the House did strike the comments after Representative Miller refused to voluntarily retract his remarks. Good for you. California's Republican Representative Jay Obernolt, who was presiding over the House, declared, quote, "Such remarks impugn the patriotism and loyalty of a member of the House, which is not in order. It is if those remarks are accurate. Without objection, the offending words are stricken from the record." Now, the irony here is that the House itself has already weighed in on Rashida Tlaib's record. In November of 2023, the very chamber that is protectively coddling her now and her supposed patriotism voted 234 to 188 to censure her back then, with 22 Democrats crossing the aisle to support this official rebuke of Rashida Tlaib. That very resolution cited a several years long, entirely consistent pattern of anti-Israel rhetoric from Rashida Tlaib, as well as her open promotion of the "From the River to the Sea" slogan, a chant in favor of a genocide by Hamas against the Jews. And the House resolution also cited her inflammatory statement just one day after the October 7th massacre, in which Rashida Tlaib blatantly lied by calling Israel an apartheid state, which it definitionally is not. And she then called for the United States to cut off all support for its closest ally in the Middle East one day after the attack, before Israel had made any response at all to the slaughter of October 7th. And that was far from an isolated incident. Rashida Tlaib also said on the Skullduggery podcast that, quote, "There's always kind of a calming feeling, I always tell folks, when I think of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Holocaust. Yes, the Holocaust was calming." In 2021, Tlaib spoke at a rally outside of the State Department where activists chanted for the elimination of Israel, while Palestinian terrorists were firing hundreds of rockets into Israeli cities full of civilians at that very moment, which they were entirely good with. In 2020, Rashida Tlaib promoted the people defending Ahmed Erekat, who drove his car into a border checkpoint in a deliberate terrorist attack. In February of 2024, Rashida Tlaib was the only member of the entire House, whether Democrat or Republican. Yes, not even her fellow squad members joined her on this one. She was the one and only member of Congress to refuse to vote in favor of a resolution that condemned Hamas's use of rape and sexual violence as a weapon of war. Let me repeat that. Rashida Tlaib refused to condemn rape in war and voted present instead. She was also a member of a private Facebook group whose members openly glorified Hamas during the immediate aftermath of October 7th. That group, of which Rashida Tlaib was a part, was getting off on posting photos of Hamas killers who were posing with their elderly hostages. And that group was busy openly celebrating the slaughter of Israeli soldiers as, quote, achievements. That group's founder is also one of Rashida Tlaib's key fundraisers, a person that has posted videos online questioning the existence of the Holocaust and calling all Jews, quote, satanic. So to recap, Representative Miller called Tlaib a terrorist advocate on the floor of the House. The House itself censured her for that very thing. Her own colleagues slammed her for that very thing. Her own Facebook group cheered on Hamas terrorists, demonstrating the truth of that very accusation. They can strike Representative Miller's words to be PC, but regardless, the simple fact is that they are still the most well-documented words of truth that have been spoken in Congress in a very long time.